Hey everyone, Lotus Prince here. This is not the kind of video that I normally do, but I thought I would give you somewhat of a look at behind the scenes here. This isn't exactly my process or anything like that, but it's a cool piece of hardware that I thought you might be interested in, which has made my streaming experience considerably easier, at least for one particular system. Let me show you here. What I have here is a Model 1 Sega Genesis, oops, let's get that in the shot, and a Model 2 Sega CD. Now I have these hooked up together, of course, that's how it works if you want to play the Sega CD. Now, the thing with these systems is that hooking them up can be a bit of a chore. Here's what I mean. This is a standard hookup for a Sega Genesis. You have this this giant brick adapter here. Now, honestly, this thing by itself is not overly big of a deal. You know, you get the other side, and you hook it up to the back of the Genesis like so. Problem solved. Now, if you ever wanted to play Sega Genesis, then all you would do was take the giant brick here and put it into your wall outlet. Now, it's tall, so that means that you can't put it in your top socket. You would have to put it in the bottom one, and then the TV plug could go on the top. Okay, simple enough. The problem, though, is if you want to play the Sega CD, because guess what? You need a second one of these. One for the Genesis, one for the Sega CD. So this guy will end up going in here. And we're in. So now I'm dealing with not one, but two bricks. Now we have a problem, because this is not going to work with wall outlets. Now, you may be saying, well, okay, duh, this is the modern age, we tend to have solutions for that. They're called power strips. Yeah, and we had power strips back then too, but the thing was, they were those small rectangular actual strips. They tended to have, ooh, geez, maybe 4 or 5 outlets, and you would take the strip itself and hook it up to your wall outlet. The TV could go into your other socket, and then for the strips you could use these bricks. The problem with the bricks, though, is that not only are they tall, but they're also wide. So you can see here are the prongs, but then the brick goes way out here. So even if you hook this up to a wall outlet, it's going to take up more than one socket. You know, it'll actually hook up to one socket but cover another, possibly a third if it goes left to right. It's really irritating. So if you want to play the Genesis, or if you want to play the CD, then you have to have both of them plugged in, and God forbid you have a Sega 32X, because at that point you would need possibly a second power strip. James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd, made a video on this subject years ago, and he wasn't kidding. Hooking this thing up, it's like resurrecting Frankenstein's monster. You have these 3 giant bricks, and they take up so much space, and do you really want to have 2 power outlets for just playing a Sega CD 32X game? Because that's really, really obnoxious. Well, at this point, I gotta give a shout out to my friend Vice the Bold, because he informed me of a really cool website called Retro Game Cave. I think it's .com, but I can provide you with the URL anyway in the video description. But they have hardware for this very purpose, for gaming in a modern age. We do have bigger power strips now, but even so, these strips, or these bricks, still take up the same amount of space. So I'm going to unhook both of these bricks here and put these down. Now, what I have gotten here is a really interesting device. This is called a, I'm scraping the system here. This is called a Trio. So you might have noticed it said M1 on it. There are different models of Trios, and this website sells what are called Duos as well. The Trio is if you want to hook this thing up to a Genesis, a Sega CD, and a 32X. A Duo is just for the Genesis and Sega CD, I believe. Now, mine was labeled M1. They have different models of Duos or Trios depending on what kind of Genesis and CD you have. There are 3 models of Sega Genesis, but Model 3 is not compatible with Sega CD at all, so there are 2 relevant models of Sega Genesis, and there are 2 models of Sega CD. So you're going to need to see what kinds of systems you have if you want to make this decision, but they let you know which things this device corresponds to on their website, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. Now, why is the Trio so cool? Well, you have your brick, right? But as you take your brick, you will find that this cord extends, and you have a little plug here, extends, another plug, extends, a third plug. So what you can do with these things is, I'll take my systems back. What you do is the very last plug goes into the 32X, which I don't have, so I won't worry about this one. The middle plug will go into your Genesis, like so. Yeah, I was right, like so. And then the final plug, let me just take off the little insulator cap here. The final plug will go into the Sega CD. So now we're hooked up with both the Sega CD plug, you can't really see it, there, Sega CD plug, and Genesis plug. Now, why does this matter? Because when you get to your M1 box here, what's the other side? Well, a regular old plug. It's not even a brick. This will hook up to exactly one socket and not take up any others. It's just wonderful. So let me show you the deal with this thing. Okay, at this point I have taken the liberty of hooking up my systems here. I have the video cable from the Genesis going up to the TV. I also have my audio cables going from, not the Genesis, but the CD. Again, going up to the TV. I apologize for my super sloppy setup. I'll deal with that a little later. Now, normally I would not have these hooked up if I'm just using the Genesis, but I want to show the CD here. Now back to the left. This is my Trio. You can see the cable feeds over here to the unused cable for the 32X, but also into the Sega CD, and then it continues out this way. There's the box. And the box continues to this plug. So I'm going to go ahead and hook this up. Sorry for my sloppy camera work here. And as you can see, I have a pretty decent outlet, but hey, I have a decent outlet here, but even now, if I wanted to play a Sega CD and 32X, that's a lot of space taken up. In any case, I'll go back to the Genesis. So we're all hooked up, and now looking good, right? Let me get the controller here. Oops, didn't want to go to tracks, but whatever. There we go. Hooray! So yeah, the Sega CD works. Pretty rad, huh? This Trio thing really does save a lot of time and effort. There we are. So yeah, I could stream Sega CD games just as easily as I could Genesis stuff. And I've been streaming Genesis stuff. By the way, there is one last little thing that I would like to point out. When I've been using the brick, the first streaming project I did was Sonic the Hedgehog 1, and I used this brick. Now, the stream went fine, but I should point out that after about an hour and 40 minutes, this guy, like, everything worked, but this guy got really hot. When I unplugged the Genesis and everything, this thing was glowing hot. Now, with the Trio, when all was said and done with this guy, I was doing Ghouls and Ghosts for about 2 hours. When I unplugged this thing, it was very slightly warm. Like, you could tell it had been turned on, but it was not, it didn't feel like it was in danger of overheating or anything. This thing's actually really efficient. So not only can you get all of your systems hooked up with just a single cable here, but on top of that, I think it actually distributes power better across your system or systems and actually helps them run more efficiently than they did when they were in their prime. So, once again, Retro Game Cave is a really sweet site with duos and trios, and these things are super great. So if you're still retro gaming with a Genesis, or a Mega Drive, as known in Europe, or a Sega CD or Mega CD, as is known in Europe, or a 32X, then this may very well be the thing for you. So I hope this was an interesting experience for you. I'll catch you in my next video. Until next time, everyone.